I should have known something was wrong. The moment I saw my husband's hand on her waist. But this was supposed to be the happiest day of my best friends. Life, how was I supposed to know it would become the day my entire world shattered? Let me start from the beginning, because none of this makes sense without context. My name is Sarah, and I've been married to my husband James for 5 years. We met in college, fell in love over late-night study sessions and cheap coffee, and built what I thought was a perfect life together. He's a software engineer. I work as a pediatric nurse. We have a small house in the suburbs, 2 rescue dogs named Pepper and Salt, and every Sunday, we make pancakes together while listening to old jazz records, or at least, that's what I thought we had. My best friend Emma had been planning her wedding for 18 months. 18 months of dress fittings, venue tours, cake tastings, and late-night phone calls, where she'd ask me for the 1,000th time if ivory or cream looked better. With her skin tone, Emma and I had been inseparable since we were 12 years old. We shared our first terrible attempt at makeup, our first heartbreaks, our college acceptance letters. She was the sister I never had when she got engaged to David. I was overjoyed David seemed perfect for her. Kind, stable, worked in finance, always made her laugh. They'd met through a mutual friend 2 years earlier, and their relationship had been a fairy tale from the start. At least, that's what everyone thought. The wedding was at a beautiful vineyard 2 hours outside the city. James and I drove up the day before for the rehearsal dinner. I remember that drive so clearly now. Though at the time it seemed completely ordinary, James was quieter than usual, kept checking his phone. "Work stuff?" I asked, glancing over at him in the passenger seat. He looked up, almost startled. "Yeah, just some bug in the code. Nothing major." I reached over and squeezed his hand. "You work too hard, you know that?" He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Someone's gotta pay for Pepper and Salt's expensive taste in dog food," I laughed. That was us easy jokes. Comfortable silence. The kind of partnership that doesn't need constant words to feel connected. Or so I believed. The rehearsal dinner was lovely. Emma was radiant in a simple white dress. Her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, David couldn't stop staring at her with this look of complete adoration. My heart swelled watching them. This was real love. This was what everyone hoped to find. James sat beside me during dinner, his hand resting on my knee under the table. Normal. Everything was so painfully normal. "You look beautiful tonight," he whispered. In my ear, I was wearing a deep blue dress that James had always loved. I leaned into him, breathing in his familiar cologne, cedar, and something citrusy. "You're not so bad yourself." Emma caught my eye from across the table and mouthed, "Thank you." I'd been helping her coordinate so many details, running interference with her difficult mother, keeping her calm when the florist almost canceled. I mouthed back, "Love you." If only I'd known those would be some of the last genuine moments of our friendship. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, sunny but not too hot. A light breeze carrying the scent of lavender from the vineyard's gardens. I arrived early to help Emma get ready. Her bridal suite was filled with champagne, laughter, and the excited chatter of bridesmaids. Emma looked like an angel in her dress. It was a fitted lace gown with a long train, delicate beading catching the light with every movement. When I helped her with her veil, I saw tears in her eyes. Happy tears, right? I asked, smiling. She nodded quickly. "Of course I'm just overwhelmed. This is really happening. You're going to be so happy. And David is perfect for you." She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Is he, though? Is anyone ever really perfect for anyone?" I laughed, thinking she was just having pre-wedding jitters. "No one's perfect, but he's perfect for you. I can see it in the way he looks at you, like you hung the moon." She turned away from the mirror. "Sarah, you're my best friend. You know that, right?" "Of course I do. You're mine too. I want you to know that no matter what happens, I never meant to hurt you." I hugged her, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "Em, what's wrong? Are you having second thoughts?" "No," she said quickly, too quickly. "No. I'm just emotional wedding day nerves, ignore me." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Emma kept checking her phone, biting her lip, looking toward the door like she was expecting someone, or maybe dreading their arrival. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. By 3:30. Guests were taking their seats in the rows of white chairs, facing an archway covered in white roses and greenery. I found James standing near the back, talking on his phone when he saw me approaching. He ended the call abruptly. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine, just work. On a Saturday? During a wedding?" He kissed my forehead. "You know how it is. Let's find our seats." We sat near the front on Emma's side. I watched David take his place at the altar. His best man beside him, David looked nervous but excited. Rocking slightly on his heels, the string quartet began playing, and the bridesmaids started their procession down the aisle. Then the music changed to the bridal march. Everyone stood. I turned to watch Emma, expecting to see her glowing with happiness as she walked with her father. But what I saw made my blood run cold. Emma was walking down the aisle. Yes, looking absolutely stunning. But her eyes were locked on someone in the crowd, not on David. Her gaze was intense, almost desperate, and it was fixed on a point just 2 rows behind me. I followed her line of sight. She was looking at James, my husband, my James, and the expression on his face, I'd never seen him look at anyone like that. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched at his sides, and there was something in his eyes that I can only describe as anguish mixed with longing. My stomach dropped. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Emma reached the altar. David took her hand. Smiling widely, oblivious, the officiant began speaking, but I couldn't hear the words. There was a ringing in my ears. A rushing sound like standing too close to ocean waves. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Throughout the ceremony, I kept glancing between Emma and James. She never looked back again, kept her eyes forward or on David, but James kept staring at her. His expression was complicated. Pain, regret, something else I couldn't name. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," and David kissed Emma, I saw James's jaw clench so hard I thought his teeth might crack. What was happening? The ceremony ended. Rice was thrown. Photos were taken. Emma and David laughed and posed while the photographer captured every angle. I stood frozen, watching, trying to understand what I'd witnessed. "Sarah?" James touched my arm. "You okay?" "You look pale." I turned to him slowly. "Do I?" "Let's get you some water. It's hot out here." We walked toward the reception area, where cocktail hour was beginning. James's hand on my lower back felt wrong, foreign, like a stranger's touch. The reception hall was decorated beautifully. Fairy lights, cream-colored linens, centerpieces of white hydrangeas and roses. Our table was near the front. James pulled out my chair for me. The perfect gentleman, the perfect husband I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled and made small talk with the other guests at our table. I sipped champagne that tasted like nothing. I picked at the beautifully plated food that might as well have been cardboard, and I watched Emma and David at the head table. I watched how she smiled at him, how she laughed at his jokes, how she fed him cake when that moment came. It all looked so real, so genuine, but I also watched how her eyes would occasionally drift across the room, how she would scan the crowd like she was looking for someone, how her smile would falter for just a split second before she caught herself. I watched James, too, how he kept excusing himself to take work calls, how he barely touched his food, how he drank 3 glasses of wine in the first hour, when he normally never had more than 1. The first dance happened. Emma and David swayed to some romantic song, while everyone watched and smiled and took photos. David held her close, whispering something that made her laugh. She laid her head on his shoulder. It looked like love, but then I saw it over David's shoulder. Emma opened her eyes and looked directly at James. It was just for a second, maybe 2, but the look that passed between them was electric. It was the kind of look that could start fires or tear down buildings. It was intimate in a way that made me feel sick. James looked away first, standing abruptly from our table. "Need some air," he muttered, walking quickly toward the exit. I sat there, my mind racing. Was I crazy? Was I seeing things that weren't there? I'd been working long shifts at the hospital recently. Maybe I was just exhausted, paranoid, imagining connections that didn't exist. But my gut told me otherwise. When the father-daughter dance ended and the dancing opened to all guests, I knew I needed to find James. I needed answers. I stood up, making my way through the crowd, when I saw something that made my heart stop completely, near the back entrance to the hall. Partially hidden by a tall floral arrangement, James and Emma stood together. His hand was on her waist. Her hand was on his chest. Their faces were inches apart, and they were talking intensely. Urgently, Emma was crying. Mascara starting to run down her cheeks, James wiped a tear away with his thumb. A gesture so tender it made me want to vomit. Then Emma stepped back, shaking her head, saying something I couldn't hear. James reached for her, but she stepped back again. He dropped his hand, his face crumpling with emotion. Emma turned and nearly ran back toward the reception, composing herself just before she rejoined the party, smiling and laughing like nothing had happened. James stood there alone for a moment, his head bowed, his shoulders shaking. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't process what I'd just seen. My husband, my best friend together, looking at each other the way soulmates look at each other in movies. How long had this been happening? How could I have been so blind? I backed away before James could see me, my vision blurring with tears. I needed to leave. I needed to go somewhere and fall apart in private. I turned and walked quickly toward the bathroom. Keeping my head down, that's when I collided with someone. Whoa, sorry, Sarah? I looked up into David's face, the groom, Emma's brand new husband. He was holding a glass of scotch, his tie loosened. His hair slightly disheveled from dancing. David, I'm sorry. I couldn't finish. The tears were coming now. Hot and fast, his expression changed immediately. Hey, what's wrong? Come here. He guided me outside onto a quiet terrace overlooking the vineyard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. It would have been beautiful if my life wasn't falling apart. Sarah, talk to me. What happened? I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, crying harder. David handed me his handkerchief. Who even carries those anymore? And waited patiently while I tried to compose myself. Finally, I managed to choke out. I saw them. David went very still. Saw who? James and Emma together. Just now. The way they looked at each other, I couldn't finish. David exhaled slowly. Then he said something that changed everything. I know. I stared at him. What? I know about them, Sarah. I've known for a while. My mouth fell open. You know? But you just married her. How could you? Why would you? David took a long drink of his scotch. It's complicated. Complicated? David, she's in love with my husband, and your husband is in love with her, he said quietly. I know, believe me, I know. I felt like I might faint. How long? How long has this been going on? David looked out at the sunset. They've known each other for 2 years, met about 6 months before Emma and I got together. 2 years. 2 entire years. They had a relationship, David continued, his voice eerily calm. A serious one. They fell hard for each other. Fast James was apparently going to leave you. He had divorce papers drafted. Each word was a knife. He what? But then Emma found out she was pregnant. The world stopped. Pregnant? I whispered. She miscarried at 8 weeks. It was devastating for both of them. But James decided he couldn't leave you, couldn't go through with it. He felt too guilty, said you'd done nothing wrong, that you deserved better than to be abandoned. I felt like I was listening to someone else's life. This couldn't be real. Emma was heartbroken. David said, angry. She cut him off completely. That's when she and I met at first. I was a distraction for her, I knew that, but I fell in love with her anyway. He laughed bitterly. Pathetic, right? So you married her knowing she's in love with someone else? I married her hoping she'd eventually love me back. He turned to look at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. I know it's foolish, but I love her, Sarah. I love her enough to wait. to hope that one day she'll wake up and realize that what we have is real and worth fighting for. But David, I know what you're going to say, that I deserve better, that I'm setting myself up for heartbreak, that this is insane. He smiled sadly. You're probably right, but love makes us do crazy things, doesn't it? I thought about James. About 5 years of marriage that I thought were real. About coming home every day to someone who was apparently pining for someone else. Did they ever? I couldn't finish the question. Sleep together while you were married? David asked gently. No, I asked Emma point blank. She swore they didn't. Said they've seen each other at group events, but never alone. Never crossed that line. James apparently draws hard boundaries. Small comfort. They may not have physically cheated, but the emotional betrayal cut just as deep. Why are you telling me this? I asked. David shrugged. Because you deserve to know the truth and because... He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. Because I saw the way you looked at them. The confusion. The hurt I couldn't let you go crazy wondering you're a good person. Sarah, you didn't deserve any of this. Neither did you. No, he agreed. But here we are. We stood in silence for a moment, two people united by the betrayal of the people we loved most. What are you going to do? I finally asked. Nothing. David said, I'm going to go back in there and dance. With my wife, I'm going to cut the cake and throw the bouquet and take her on our honeymoon to Italy. I'm going to love her with everything. I have and hope that's enough. That's not healthy. David, probably not. But it's my choice. He looked at me carefully. What are you going to do? I thought about it. I thought about James waiting inside, probably wondering where I was. I thought about Emma dancing and smiling and playing the role of happy bride. I thought about 5 years of what I thought was a good marriage. I don't know. I admitted. David nodded. Fair enough, but Sarah? Whatever you decide, you deserve someone who looks at you the way I look at Emma. The way James looks at Emma. You deserve to be someone's first choice, not their consolation prize. His words hit me like a punch to the gut because they were true. So painfully, obviously true. Should we go back? I asked, wiping my eyes. In a minute. Let's let the evidence of crying fade a bit first. Wouldn't want to cause a scene at my own wedding. He tried to smile, but it was hollow. We stood there as the sun sank lower, two people trying to hold themselves together while everything fell apart. When we finally went back inside, the party was in full swing. The dance floor was packed. Emma was in the center, dancing with her bridesmaids, looking radiant and carefree. James was back at our table, staring at his phone. I walked over and sat down beside him. He looked up, clearly relieved. There you are. I was getting worried. You okay? I studied his face, the face I'd woken up next to for 5 years, the face I'd kissed goodbye every morning, the face I thought I knew better than my own. I need to ask you something. I said quietly. His expression shifted. Okay, are you in love with Emma? The color drained from his face. His mouth opened, but no words came out. That was all the answer I needed. Sarah, just tell me the truth. Please, I deserve that much. James closed his eyes when he opened them. They were filled with tears. I love you, I do. That's not what I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, barely audible. Yes, I'm in love with her. I have been for a long time. The admission hung between us like smoke. Even though I'd known, had seen it with my own eyes, hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way that was devastating. Why didn't you leave? I asked, because I love you too in a different way, but I do. You're good and kind, and you've never done anything to deserve being hurt. I couldn't do that to you. So instead, you stayed and loved someone else, while pretending to be happy with me. That was your solution? I know how it sounds, do you? I felt anger rising, hot and sharp. Do you know what it's like to find out that your entire marriage has been a lie? That the person you trusted most in the world has been in love with your best friend? It wasn't all a lie, James said desperately. The good times we had, those were real. My feelings for you are real. Just not as real as what you feel for her. He couldn't argue with that. I want a divorce. I heard myself say. James's face crumpled. Sarah, please, can we talk about this? There's nothing to talk about. You love her. She loves you. The only reason you're with me is guilt. That's not a marriage. James, that's a prison sentence for both of us. But no, I stood up, surprising myself with how steady I felt. The initial shock had given way to a strange clarity. I'm not going to be your consolation prize. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wondering if you're thinking about her, if you wish I was her. Where are you going? Home. I'll stay with my sister. You can have the house until we figure out the details. I walked away without looking back as I passed the dance floor. I caught Emma's eye. She saw something in my expression. Knowledge, maybe. Or determination. And her face went pale. But I didn't stop. Didn't confront her. What was the point? She'd made her choice, and it wasn't our friendship. I drove home that night in complete silence. No music, no phone calls, just the sound of tires on asphalt and my own breathing. When I got to our house, the house James and I had bought together, painted together, filled with our combined possessions. I packed a bag of essentials. Pepper and salt followed me around. Sensing something was wrong, I knelt down and hugged them both, crying into their fur. You'll be okay, I whispered to them. You'll both be okay. I called my sister, who answered on the second ring. Sarah? It's almost midnight. Can I stay with you for a while? Of course, what happened? I'll explain when I get there. I took one last look around our home. At the photos on the wall of our wedding day, our vacations, our life together, at the couch where we'd spent countless evenings watching movies, at the kitchen where we made Sunday pancakes, all of it felt like artifacts from someone else's. Life now, I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter and walked out. That was 8 months ago. The divorce was finalized last week. We split everything fairly. James was generous. Probably out of guilt, I got enough money to put a down payment on a small apartment. I kept Pepper James, kept Salt. We couldn't bear to separate the dogs permanently, so we have a custody arrangement. It's ridiculous and heartbreaking in equal measure. I haven't spoken to Emma since that night. She texted me once. A long message full of apologies and explanations and pleas for understanding. I deleted it without reading. Past the first line, David texted me a few times in the months after simple check-ins. How are you holding up? Hope you're doing okay. I appreciated it. We'd formed an odd bond that night, united by our shared heartbreak last week. He texted, Emma and I are getting divorced. Turns out you can't build a marriage on hope alone. I called him. We talked for 2 hours. He's moving to Seattle for a new job, a fresh start. He sounds lighter than I've heard him since the wedding. Like a weight has been lifted. I loved her, he told me. I really did. But I deserve someone who loves me back with the same intensity we both do. Yeah. I agreed. We do. I haven't asked about James and Emma. I don't want to know if they're together now. It doesn't matter. That's their story, not mine anymore. I'm doing okay. Better than okay. Actually, I started therapy, which has helped immensely. I've reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my marriage. I picked up painting, something I loved in college but abandoned. I'm learning to be alone without being lonely. Some days are harder than others. I still sometimes wake up and reach for someone who isn't there. I still occasionally hear a song that reminds me of us and feel that sharp pang of loss. Still have moments where I wonder what I did wrong, even though logically I know I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm healing slowly. Gradually, I'm putting myself back together this month. A doctor who works at my hospital asked me to coffee. His name is Marcus, and he has kind eyes and a warm smile. I said yes. We've been on 3 dates. It's early, and I'm taking it slow, but there's something there, potential hope. Marcus looks at me like I'm the most interesting person in the room. When we talk, he's fully present, not distracted or distant. When he laughs at my jokes, it reaches his eyes. It's such a stark contrast to those last years with James, when I was slowly fading into the background of my own marriage. I don't know if Marcus and I will be anything serious. But what matters is that I'm open to it. I'm open to the possibility of being loved completely, wholeheartedly, by someone who chooses me first, because that's what David said that night. And he was right. I deserve to be someone's first choice, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Emma's not doing well. The guilt has apparently been eating at her. She lost most of her friends when the truth came out. Turns out people don't react kindly when you fall in love with your best friend's husband. Her career took a hit, too. She works in a small industry where reputation matters, part of me. A small, petty part. Feels a flash of satisfaction hearing that. But mostly, I just feel sad. Sad for all of us. For the friendship we lost. For the lives we thought we were building. For the pain we all went through. I don't hate her. I don't hate James. Hate requires energy. I don't want to spend on them. Instead, I'm channeling that energy into myself, into building a life that's authentic and whole. I'm learning that sometimes love isn't enough, that you can love someone and still not be right for them, that staying in a relationship out of guilt or obligation isn't noble. It's cruel to everyone involved. I'm learning that betrayal doesn't always look like the dramatic scenes in movies. Sometimes it's quiet. It's lingering. Glances, it's emotional distance. It's the slow erosion of intimacy while someone's heart belongs elsewhere. I'm learning that healing isn't linear, that you can feel strong one day and shattered. The next, that both states can coexist, and that's okay. Most importantly, I'm learning that my worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to love me the way I deserve. James's feelings for Emma don't diminish my value. Emma's betrayal doesn't make me naive or foolish. Their story is about them, not about any lack in me. I'm enough. I was always enough. Sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that moment at the wedding, standing on the terrace with David, both of us confronting the painful truth of our situations, how he chose to stay and hope, while I chose to leave and heal. Neither choice was wrong. We each did what we needed to do for ourselves. But I'm glad I walked away. Because now, when I wake up in my little apartment with Pepper curled at my feet, when I paint on Saturday mornings with sunlight streaming through my windows, when I laugh with Marcus over coffee and feel that flutter of genuine connection, I'm fully present in my own life. I'm not a supporting character in someone else's love story anymore. I'm the protagonist of my own. And this time, I'm writing it with intention, with honesty, with the determination to never again settle for being someone's second choice. If there's anything I want you to take from my story, it's this. Love yourself enough to walk away from people who can't love you properly. Honor yourself enough to demand authenticity in your relationships. Respect yourself enough to know that being alone is infinitely better than being with someone whose heart belongs elsewhere. You deserve to be chosen. Completely, wholly, without reservation. Don't settle for anything less. I didn't, and I promise you, the freedom on the other side of that decision, the freedom to be yourself, to start over, to find real love, is worth every painful step it takes to get there.